She has her voice after all. Linda Millar on flute.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much. Oh, what a great sound. You know, I have to say, I want to acknowledge also the professionalism. You know, the keyboard fades out, you just keep right on singing. Just like, I don't think most of you even realize that, probably. Thank you, that was beautiful, beautiful. Oh, well, good morning, everyone. Good morning. I want to thank and celebrate all of you who remember to set your clocks forward this morning. You know, it's nice to have everybody show up, you know. And we're not going to do 2 services today, for those who don't, but we'll bless them anyway, right? I came across a wonderful story about time, and there was an Alabama state troopers were closing in on a speeding car when it crossed into Georgia. Suddenly, the officer behind the wheel slowed down and went to a stop. And music came on. Yes, anyway, so the state trooper, well, they were chasing after these guys, and then just as soon as they crossed the Georgia state line, the state trooper behind the wheel pulled to a stop, and his partner looked at him and said, "What are you doing? We almost had them. We almost had them." And the guy said, "Well, what's the point? They're already in another time zone. They're an hour ahead of us." Oh my gosh, right? There was a 95-year-old Florida woman was running for mayor, and she asked if she knew who, you know, if she really knew who she was running against. And she very, you know, clearly said, "Yes, time." So anyway, I'm glad you all were able to adjust your time frame and be able to be here with us this morning. And some of us are still trying to realize that it's, you know, it's later than it seems, which is always a good awareness when we pay attention. Well, we've been talking over the last several weeks about a very powerful, wonderful book called The Bond by Lynn McTaggart, Connecting to the Space Between Us. And there's just been all kinds of amazing awarenesses and insights that I've been getting myself about in reading this book. And I came across another wonderful, cute story about a young baseball team. And the coach went to, it was one point in the middle of the game, it was a Little League game, and he went to one of the young players and went up to him and says, "Do you understand what cooperation is? I mean, what team is?" And the young boy said, "Well, yes." And do you understand what matters is whether we together as a team, we win together as a team? And the boy nodded and said, "Yes, yes, yeah." He says, "So do you understand that, you know, when a strike is called, that you know, or you're out at first base, that you don't argue or curse or attack the umpire? Do you understand that?" And the little boy said, "Well, yeah, I understand." He says, "Good, would you mind going over and explaining that to your dad?" Well, we're talking about this week about the importance and the significance of a very simple word, and we use it a lot, and we don't always, I think, pay as much attention to it as we probably need to, and that is the word together. It's a very important and powerful word. In this country, we have a tendency to really idolize and to acknowledge and to really, in many ways, really praise the individual. Rugged individualism is a big part of this country, and I don't want to diminish the importance of the individual. The individual is important, but I'm going to suggest to you, and I'm going to suggest to all of us, that we begin to not only put as much emphasis on the individual as we do on the individual on a team, the individual in community, the individual in a nation, for that matter, or an individual in our world. You see, the reality is that none of us lives in a vacuum. And all those who are rugged individuals have had something and someone to help them to be able to overcome whatever difficulties and challenges, regardless of whether they realize it or think it's true or not. So in Proverbs chapter 29:18, there's an important understanding about community. There's an important understanding about we as a people. There's an important understanding about our collective coming together. And the verse basically says, where there is no vision, the people perish. Where there is no vision, the people perish. And what that says to me is that where there is no awareness of a unified idea of what we are moving toward or what we are holding as a possibility for ourselves, that we collectively don't hold together. We actually become very disparate. We become very polarized, you might say. Anybody heard that term lately, polarized? It seems that we are experiencing a huge impact of this energy of polarization in our country and in our world. I was looking at that particular verse, and another translation of it I thought was very, very powerful for us. And it says, when people do not accept divine guidance, they run wild. But whoever obeys the law is joyful. So, I came in the book, Lynn presents a very powerful and a wonderful and a very well-known and very, as she puts it, a very beloved experiment that was done. And I don't remember exactly what year. I don't remember whether she quoted the year that it was done, but it's an experiment that was done. It's on the front of your bulletin. It's a powerful Robbers Cave State Park. Is on the front here. Charles found a really great picture of the actual boys involved in the experiment. In this experiment, they set up this camp of young boys, 12 years old, all of them 12, as I understand it, and they set it up in two different camps, basically. They had the camps completely separated, and they were basically two different teams. And one was, they gave themselves the name of Eagle, and I forgot the name of the other one, but they had their own little mascot names. And they had them actually involved in all kinds of activities that were only their team was involved in, or their group was involved in. And what they found was that they began to very quickly, they were aware of the other group, but they actually began to very quickly do things and in a way began to make the other team the opposition. Even though they weren't necessarily doing things that were in competition with each other, they began to see them as the competition. And then after a while, they actually did, part of the experiment, they did have them do a task that made it look like they were in competition with each other. And after a period of time, they began doing things, they began raiding each other's camps, and they began, they offered prizes for different things, and at one point, one group went and raided the other camp and stole the prizes, and eventually the whole thing turned into a big fist fight. And then what they began to do was introduce tasks and activities to the group where it was only possible for them to be successful if they all worked together. One of the things that they did was they actually, and I don't know if they actually set this up or this was just simply a result of what went on, but they were not able to get water and food into the camp. First of all, it was water, and they had no way of getting water into the camp. And there was no way for them to be able to get the water in the camp without the cooperation of all of the boys. And when they presented this to the boys and let them know that we're going to need to have everybody come help make sure that we have water here, they all came together. They all figured out a way to do it. The young boys figured it out for themselves, figured out how they were going to do it, and they began to get water into the camp. They had to take it from a big cistern, as I understand it. Another situation happened when they couldn't get food in. There was a truck stuck in the mud, and they couldn't get the truck out with just one team. They needed all of the boys together to be able to get the truck out. So they were able to get the boys all together. And they were able to get the truck. The boys came up with a solution of how to get the truck out of the mud so that they could get food into the camp. And after they went through this series of experiences where all of them had to come together for a particular purpose and goal, what they found was that the boys began hanging out with each other from different camps. They began sitting next to each other in the movies. They began to, before this, they were completely separated. There was this side and there was this side. After they began having some of these experiences, they began to intermingle. They began to make connections. They began to make friends with each other. It really changed the whole energy of the camp. And it was no longer one team against the other. It really was, we're all in this together. There's a unifying power of this understanding, this belief system, this idea, this awareness that we're all in this together. We forget that a lot of times, don't we? We're so geared toward thinking of us and them. And yet it's really one of the most dysfunctional ways that we can operate in our lives. The power of this idea, this understanding that we're all in this together, is one of the most valuable things for our own well-being, as well as for the well-being of this spiritual community, as well as for the well-being of this city that we're in, as well as for the well-being of our country, yes, as well as for the well-being of our world. It's challenging sometimes to look beyond our differences, isn't it? It's challenging to look beyond the points of view, the ways of seeing things in life that say, what I see is what is real and what's important and what's valuable. And to be willing to look at a particular person, circumstance, situation who has an opposing idea or opposing view, and recognize that somewhere in both of those views, there's a reality and a truth that's beyond both our visions. And that part of our work is to begin to recognize that breaking off into a particular way of looking at things and holding on to that, and then making those who don't agree with that point of view the other, is not only true in a spiritual awareness, a spiritual nature, because there really is only one spirit. There's only one spirit. In Scripture it says there's really only one body. And the hand doesn't tell the eye what to do, and the ear doesn't tell, the mouth what to do, and basically they're all important, and they're all significant. And we're all a part of a greater collective, and the very idea that we are separate from all of the others is one of the things that keeps us from really living to our individual full potential. Not only from our collective full potential, but even our individual full potential. In the Robbers Cave experience, children were given all these common goals and purposes that were basically larger than themselves and larger than their individual group. They rarely put aside their differences to work together cooperatively as a superorganism. In Unity, the co-founder of Unity, Charles Fillmore, had an understanding. I think he was so far beyond ahead of his time in so many ways. But he had an understanding that we're all a part of one mind. It was a big part of his understanding, his spiritual awareness, that we're all a part of a one mind. And within that one mind, there is what we call race consciousness. Now, race consciousness, he's referring to the human race. He's referring to that we all have a collective mind. But there's actually a mind that's even greater and more significant than our collective race consciousness. In many ways, he was teaching that our race consciousness is one of the things that actually holds us back from living into our spiritual consciousness. Because we accept ideas and thoughts and energies and belief system from this one mind of race consciousness, And yet there is a greater energy and consciousness that we're all a part of that is even beyond the race consciousness. We're all a part of something much greater than our individual selves. We're all a part of something much greater than our individual small groups and families. We're a part of something even greater than our collective boundaries that we've created in this world. It's amazing how we set up boundaries, isn't it? We set up state boundaries. I thought that was an interesting story about crossing the state boundary. We set up state boundaries. We set up boundaries for nations. We set up boundaries. But you know, one of the things that I loved that came out of our exploration of outer space is this amazing image that I know that all of us have seen from outer space of this beautiful blue planet. And you know, there's not a single boundary line on any of those pictures. Do you realize that? Not a single boundary line. It's all a beautiful, beautiful blue and white sphere. I think it really helped humankind to really begin to see the possibilities that we really are all in this together. It really began to in many ways, began to shift the understanding. Don't get me wrong, there's still a lot who really believe in the importance and the power of putting up boundaries. And they espouse these ideas. But one of the things that she points out here that really spoke to me is a study that was done of gated communities. I've lived in a gated community before, and it was some nice things about it, some valuable things about it. But one of the things that has been shown, one of the reasons why people want to live in gated communities is there's an idea or a belief system that somehow that there's less crime, that somehow it's safer, that it's more, that people are safer in these gated communities. But what research has shown over and over again is when the walls are set up in a gated community and the gates are set up, for a short period of time, it is true. Crime does go down. It does seem like people are safer, but it's a very short-lived experience. And after a very short period of time, the crime rate in the gated communities is just as high as those right outside the gated community. There's no difference. The idea and the belief system that somehow that we can put up walls and make ourselves safer is totally erroneous. It's just not based on fact and reality. It's not based on truth. What the studies have shown is the more we take down walls, the safer we become. This is not a political statement, folks. Although this has been bandied around in our politics, this is spiritual understanding. This is spiritual awareness. This is speaking truth. See, one of the things that psychologists have learned is they call this idea that of the robber's cave experience an understanding that when we have a superabordinate goal, that's a great word, superabordinate. Did I say that rightly? Yes. Oh, superordinate, excuse me. Superordinate goal. Superordinate goal. Boy, that's a mouthful. Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, you know. A superordinate goal. What does that mean? A superordinate goal is a goal that is higher than our own specific individual or small group kind of goal. It is a goal that actually is above our own individual well-being, that really does seek out and look for a greater well-being for the larger circle, the larger community. It is a vision we have for all of us. And so one of the things that they show in the studies is that when we have a superordinate goal, it actually helps to bond us. It helps us to recognize that connection we have. It helps us to recognize our unity and our connection. It helps us to see where we are connected and how we can and do work together to really experience a greater unity and a oneness with each other. It can only be achieved by large cooperative teamwork of two or more people coming together, recognizing that they have something more important than their own individual desires and seeking out their own good. The study demonstrates that schoolboys indeed are fully capable of turning cruel and bullying to each other, from each other toward each other, that they are when they are put in a situation where they need to come together to overcome the scarce resources that they're dealing with. Engaging in sharing and teamwork activity tends to transcend their differences because it emphasizes the very heart of humanity, that we, you and I, are truly all in this together. And so part of our understanding, part of our work in growing spiritually is to expand not just our own energy and consciousness, but to expand our awareness and our vision of we, of who and what we are. There was a very powerful movie some time ago, and we showed it actually at Spiritual Cinema, and it's called Invictus. How many of you got a chance to see that movie, Invictus, about Nelson Mandela? And it was about in South Africa, and it was about this soccer team. Was it soccer? It was soccer, wasn't it? About this amazing soccer team. And the soccer team had been originally all white, and it was seen as a symbol for many years as a symbol of oppression of the blacks in South Africa. But what Nelson Mandela understood was that he needed to bring his country together with a higher vision, with a higher understanding of the togetherness. And he began to not only help the team to see their importance as a symbol of possible spiritual unity. For the longest time, all of the blacks in South Africa had nothing to do with the soccer team. They didn't want anything to do with them. But they were able to begin to demonstrate and bring in both blacks and whites into the team, but they also saw that as an opportunity and began to show the team that they had an opportunity to be a part of the healing of that country. And it was an amazing experience that helped to transform the whole community. And I think they actually won the World Soccer Cup that year. And they had the support of the whole country behind them because they saw it as a coming together of healing, of a greater possibility for them and for their country. They had a vision and a goal of the possibility of them coming together in a different way, of coming together through a goal that was greater than their individual desires and needs and wants. One of the things that in the studies that were pointed out here in the book, The Bond, is that when people began to work together as a team, they actually, their brain waves actually began to synchronize. You realize that? There's an entrainment that happens. There's a powerful awareness and experience. So let me ask you to do something for me. We're going to do a little experiment. Would you join me in this for a moment? I'm going to ask you to do something. I want you to just all to start clapping. What did you notice? At first, we were all clapping at different paces and different rhythms, and very quickly, we were all clapping together in unison. And even when I began to slow down a little bit, everyone began to slow down a little bit. When I began to speed up a little bit, everyone began to speed up a little bit. We began to synchronize. And in that very time we were doing that, we were actually entraining our beliefs together. We were also training our mind. Our microwaves of our brains are actually functioning in a harmony and a rhythm together. There's an energy there that is beyond our individual physical being, that goes beyond our separations. It's a powerful understanding that when we come together in something that is greater than our individual selves, we are actually stronger. We're stronger, that it strengthens us. There was a great study that was done by the Oxford rowing team, and they shared activities. One of the things they did was they were looking at the pain receptors and working and monitoring pain receptors. And one of the things that these rowing guys are very good at, they can put up with a significant amount of pain. It's amazing the pain that they can go through to be able to win these tournaments, these rowing competitions. It's pretty grueling. So they put cuffs on them, and one of the things that they were measuring their ability to endure pain when they were rowing in the boat by themselves compared to their ability to deal with and work through pain when they were rowing together as a team. And they showed this huge, significant spike in their ability to endure pain when they were rowing together as a team. You and I are much stronger when we are together. If you take a group of pencils, you take one pencil, how many of you think you could break one pencil? If you take two pencils, do you think you could break two pencils? Possibly. You take 5 or 6, 10 pencils, you put them together, you think you could break 5 to 10 pencils? Somebody might be able to break 5, but I doubt very many of us ever would be able to break 10. We are stronger when we come together. And that is so, it's such an important mindset for us to begin to understand. When we work toward a common purpose, we are actually helping not only to strengthen ourselves, but we're strengthening all of those around us. We're bringing together our energies, our consciousness, in such a way that we are helping to make others strong as well. We're increasing the ability of others to be who they can be and who they possibly can come to be. Henry Ford said, "Coming together is a beginning. Keeping together is progress. Working together is success." So I invite you to think about what it is that you yourself can do and are doing to help bring about a greater experience in your own life of the connections that you have. What are you specifically doing for yourself and for your community and for the larger community to bring about a greater purpose, not just for yourself, but also for those in your life and in your world? And I'm going to close a little early today because I just feel like this is really what I want to say. One of my most valuable resources that I've come across in my spiritual seeking and learning to try and grow spiritually is an amazing and powerful book by Jack and Cornelia Addington. How many of you are familiar with this book? It's called Drawing the Larger Circle. And I want to share with you a poem that I have memorized and I have reminded myself of over and over again. And the poem is 4 lines. It's some of the most beautiful and powerful transformative awarenesses that I have ever come across. And it goes like this: "He drew a circle to shut me out. Heretic, rebel, a thing to flout. But love and I had the wit to win. we drew a circle that took him in. That's our work, isn't it? This stuff is never always easy, I want you to know. Simple, but sometimes our work is to do those harder things. Sometimes it's not easy to draw that larger circle. But isn't that what unity really means? Isn't that what we're really here and called to do? So I invite you to think about, in your own personal life, what is a way that you can draw a larger circle? Not a wall, not a boundary, but a larger inclusion, a larger circle that includes, that brings together, that unites, that connects, that strengthens and recognizes and acknowledges that we truly are all in this together. Let's move into our meditation time. Okay. So just take a nice deep breath. Breathe into the heart space. Begin to know and feel the connection of the in-breath and the out-breath. Breathing in and breathing out. Being open to feeling and knowing the importance, the significance, and the oneness of all of our breath. Knowing that the in-breath is not more important than the out-breath, or vice versa. The out-breath is not more important than the in-breath. Simply allowing ourselves to be a part of a larger circle. Recognizing that with every breath we take, we have the ability, the opportunity, the choice to create separation in our thoughts, in our feelings, in our words, in our life, in our world. And we have the opportunity to strengthen, to enhance, to include, to connect. Breathing in, I draw a larger circle. And breathing out, I connect. Breathing in, I look beyond differences. And breathing out, I affirm wholeness. Breathing in, I see beyond separation. And breathing out, I express oneness. Take a moment now in the quiet of your being to allow that circle of breath, of life, that circle of connection, of togetherness, to grow and expand. And let yourself be lifted and strengthened with the knowing that not only are you drawing a larger circle, but even now you are being brought into and connected through a larger circle. In the silence. In the silence. He drew a circle that shut me out. Heretic, rebel, a thing to flout. But love and I had the wit to win. We drew a circle that took him in. Let the energy of your circle grow and expand, and be open and willing to look beyond the separations, the fears, the limiting thoughts and beliefs, the barriers, the walls, and bring into your energy those that are continually expressing love or crying out for love. Take a nice deep breath now. Let your awareness come into this time, this room, this space. Continue to bring your awareness back here and now. Keep your awareness open to that expanding circle. Be in that activity throughout our week, and so it is. When you're ready, gently open your eyes.